Hey guys, it's Michael. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to a new video of the programming series. And today we want to discuss whether we want to do high sets or low sets and what the benefits are. Let's start with the benefits of doing more sets, so high amounts of sets. And that is, the more sets we do, the more practice we get. And especially for us strength athletes, in a lot of our cases street lifting athletes, that is very, very relevant, because only if we practice a certain task, so a skill or a certain lift quite often, we get very efficient in it, we get technically strong in it, and so we also get more strength adaptations, as technique and efficiency in the lift is a very, very important factor in strength training. Benefit number two, also pretty obvious, is if we train more, so if we do more sets, we also get more stimulus. That means our muscles will grow better. We will take a look at how true that is and how the connection is with how many sets, but in general we can say more sets equals more training equals more stimulus for hypertrophy and strength. In the next step, we want to take a look at what actually limits the number of sets that we can do, or the productive number of sets that we can do. And the first one will be intensity. So the closer we train to failure and the heavier we train, the more fatigue is added set by set. And that means we are not able to perform a lot of sets. So the heavier and closer to failure we go, the less volume we can train because of fatigue. And the second reason that limits sets will be diminishing returns. So in theory, you could do a lot of sets, but what is the individual benefit of every set? That is something we need to take a look at. And in reality, that is a very, very big limiting factor for adding volume, because each set, as we're getting more fatigued, we're getting more tired, is less stimulating. So in order to get the same stimulus that you get in your first fresh sets, you need to add a lot of sets at the end. And that means you will create, at a certain point, more fatigue from a set than you actually gain stimulus from it. And so we need to take a look at where the point of diminishing returns is as high that a certain set has more negative effects than it really adds benefit to our training. Now let's get a bit more specific with this topic. And for that, I just want to give you some orientations that you can use in your actual program. So when we are talking about the first case, which will be improving a lift, that means you have a certain lift. For our street lifters, that would be our competition lifts. Those are lifts where you really want to get stronger at, where you want to become technically very efficient, and where you want to, improve on the long run. So the element of practice is very, very important. If that's the case, you should go for more sets. So around 10 plus sets a week can be an orientation for you here. Important, we're talking really about specific sets here, so not what you would call fractional sets. Giving you an example, if you would do 10 sets of dips in this case, it's really 10 sets of dips, and you don't count in the volume from the overhead press or from the triceps extensions or from the bench press that you maybe additionally are doing. So we're really talking about the sets that really practice this specific skill. What you want to do in order to gain the most out of this practice is that you distribute those 10 plus sets to at least 2 to 3 sessions a week, so that you really get frequent practice and that you don't have the diminishing returns in one session from too many sets. Because by splitting up these sets, they all remain pretty effective. And as you are training a lot of sets, you cannot go with all sets to failure, because then those sets won't be effective anymore, because you're accumulating too much fatigue and you don't get any returns from it, because fatigue will mask all the positive effects. So RPE average, somewhat 6 to 8. That means some session can be heavier, some session can be lower. That's why this is an average. So just keep in mind, you want to stay away from failure in order to be able to train more of the skill of this lift in order to practice more and so to become better on the long run. We talked about a case for a high amount of sets. Now let's take a look at a case where a low amount of sets can be handy. And when we're talking about driving hypertrophy, we don't need that much volume per session. So low amounts of sets, so 1 to 3 sets per exercise are probably all it takes in order to stimulate hypertrophy pretty well because of the diminishing returns. So the first set will be the most stimulating, where you get most of the stimulus from, and then a second and a third one can improve hypertrophy further, but it's probably not worth it to go for 4th, 5th, 6th set and so on, because the pure hypertrophy stimulus that you get from it is very little, and as you don't need the element of practice in that case, as this is not your competition lift, it's just not worth your time. In total, you should not be getting more than 6 to 8 sets per muscle group in if we're taking a look at these hypertrophy exercises. So if we have already in our case scenario 1 a competition lift that we train with 3, 4 or 5 sets already on that day, then additionally 1 to 3 sets for that particular muscle group in form of a hypertrophy assistance is totally sufficient. As we're not having too many sets here, we can train pretty close to failure or even to failure, so RPE 8 to 10 range works perfectly fine here to maximize stimulus. If you want to optimize recovery, probably more in the direction of the RPE 8 to 9 and not 10, but also a 10 has its place here and there, and that is the case where you would use lower sets, and that is the case where you would use higher sets. And if you want to learn how to program elite strength programs, then you should definitely take a look at my new strength programming course. It will guide you from zero to your first elite strength program, and it will help you to understand each step in the process and to be an independent strength coach for your own forever, because then you have all the knowledge that you need to finally write programs that will really drive progression.